Hello, and welcome to Random Health-ish. I am your host, Dr. Gloria Stone-Ozbek, and today we have a very, very special guest who is an expert in sexual assault and domestic violence. So please join me in welcoming my friend, Miss Portia Shepherd.
Hello.
How are you today?
Hi. I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. All right, so we're going to kind of jump right into it. So, Portia, of course, I know everything there is to know about you, but tell the guests a little bit of something about yourself as it relates to sexual assault and domestic violence.
Okay. Well, my name is you already said my name. So I am I was trying to tag people that I know that was asking me to share with them. But I got into the sexual assault field back in 2012. And at first and I'm just gonna be honest, at first it was just a part-time job. Okay.
Yes.
And so I was doing it and I was just like, okay, it was just a weekend thing. And I really wasn't interested because I wanted to be in politics,
Yeah.
And so what started off as something, and it wasn't until I went to my first state training that I realized that this is a movement.
Yes.
And what I was doing wasn't just a job to extra part-time job. It was actually helping saving people's lives. And so I started taking it a little bit more seriously. So from 2012 up until now, where I'm still working now, I worked at a domestic violence shelter I covered 9 counties in West Alabama. And then I went to North Alabama, working in Marshall and DeKalb County strictly for sexual assault in that area, but they all blend in together. So I've been in this field since 2012, 8-year run. I'm excited about it. I've learned a lot from going from working part-time to speaking at national conventions on the subject. Says a lot about the growth, and it's always a learning experience in this particular field.
Yes, of course. So one of the things that made me want to really do this video was because I am in a women chiropractic group, and someone suspected that a patient was a victim of domestic violence. And they didn't really know what to do. And so they were like, well, I just do I report it to, the local police station, or do I, and I know we have to be so careful into how we approach these types of things because it can make it potentially worse for the victim. So
absolutely. One of the things that I think is important, and I think that this is something that we don't discuss, is in prevention education. One of the things that's happening, and this is just nationally, just so people can know, is that prevention education for sexual assault, it comes through the CDC. I know a lot of people may think the CDC, yes, the CDC, particularly in prevention education due to sexual assault, because it's an epidemic. And so because of that, the prevention education has now changed from us going into classrooms and things like that to doing more community-based work. And community-based work this is how I go to doctor's office and drop off pamphlets, go to gas stations, drop off little cards to put them at the counter. So in case a victim comes in, they can slip a card inside of them. And I say all that to say that when doctor's office, a lot of times they don't allow, and you'll be surprised, they won't allow us to drop pamphlets off in their offices. And when I started talking to people, of course, and getting into the community, it became more acceptable. But at first, it was a lot of standoffish. And one of the things that happened was what happened to a person that you brought up is that particular doctor encountered a situation and he did not know what to do. And so that opened up a door for me to go into a group and be able to speak. And they were like, yeah, come to my office. You know how that goes. So one, allow these organizations in your community to provide services to the people that you're helping. They're not looking for, first of all, I always tell people, I used to get mad when I saw FICA on my check, and I see, they take the federal dollars out. And then I realized hey, damn it, this is how you get paid. This is your tax dollars back at work. So this is
Right.
not a charge service. These are free services, free shelter service, free counseling. All these services are free. They're grants. And so it's important that doctors understand that this is not something someone is coming in to try to steal someone away from you, as it is to provide them information. And so just like outside of your office, you have stuff for, back pain or heart or whatever. These are just pamphlets that you put in your office to let victims know that these services are available.
Okay.
And so even if you don't, go ahead.
No, go finish.
Okay, I was saying, but you have to be careful with that because, I don't know whether or not how officers, because see, you're in chiropractic. When I go to my chiropractic doctor in Rainsville, one of the things, and Gloria is my local one, but when I was in North Alabama, but one of the things is when I used to go in the back, nobody can go back there with me. It was just me and Dr. T. His nurse escorted me back there. So it's just me and Dr. T. So, that can be especially if you suspecting something, because of the fact, most of the time we used to put it in the waiting room, but then I had a doctor suggest that we put it inside of I don't know what you guys call it, the exam rooms. And I said, that's a great idea because think about it, if the victim is with the perpetrator, he or she is bringing them to the office.
Yes.
She can't grab that pamphlet in the front of. But if I put it in their exam room or even in the bathrooms,
yeah,
I was putting them in the bathroom with the little cards.
Yeah,
they can stick that in there. Yeah, they can stick it in their bra or stick it in their shoe or socks or whatever. So so they can be able to get it done. So I think that that's important to have those little nuggets and allow those organizations or reach out to those organizations and say, hey, bring some of this information into to me.
Yes, I like that idea about putting the pamphlets in the women's restroom because I have had people's husbands hover over them during the chiropractic appointment. So it's like,
oh, wow.
Yes, if they walk to the table, they're walking over to the table. They want to sit down. They want to see exactly what you're doing and, things like that. And so it makes it hard for you to actually even just treat the patient because everything you do, they're sitting there and they're just staring at you. You know what I mean? So I have seen that. So I do think that is a really, really great idea about putting it in the restrooms. So I really do like that idea. So
absolutely.
If a patient walks into my office, okay, and with chiropractic, we are very hands-on, we adjust. If I see bruises and I'm asking them about the bruises and things of that nature, and how you get I fell down the stairs or I fell in the shower, stuff like that. How do I, as a health practitioner, how do I ease my way into the conversation with the patient without making them feel embarrassed?
Man, that's a good question. Okay, so doctors know their patients, okay? And so if you're noticing that this is the third time that she's been in this sling, some of the things that you can quietly say is that, especially if they're by themselves, that even if they're with their perpetrator, you can say, I'm noticing that. I think, you can say stuff like, I think we should look, let me do an x-ray, or let's see why this is happening over and over again. Why you keep breaking the same arm, because most of the time it's always the same thing. Those type of things. And if it's a patient that comes continuously, you should build that rapport with them to where that person feel comfortable with you. And you can say things like, is that a bruise? Would you like to discuss it? Oh no, I don't want to discuss it. If they say they don't want to discuss it, the next line is very important. When you're ready, I have help for you.
Okay.
And I think that that's important, that a lot of people say that even if you're not a doctor, just with a friend, if they're not ready to discuss it or ready to get the help, you let them know when they are ready that you have some information, but you got to make sure you have the information. Don't just say when you're ready, then you got to go find it. You should be able to say, open up that drawer and say, hey, here's the card. You know what I mean? And then say, do you need to memorize this number? Because if you notice, I've had patients to tell me, clients to tell me that when they used to leave doctor's office, they would strip. Their perpetrator would make them strip.
What?
Everything. Check their pockets, purses, for anything out of the ordinary. You would be surprised at stories that we hear. One of the cool things that the state came up with are coupons. And everybody like coupons. Dudes don't really look at coupons. But inside the coupons are really not coupons. The coupons are information about domestic and sexual violence. And so it looks like a regular coupon book. But inside of it, it's something else. It's information for when that individual is ready. And I think that that's important, little cute ways that you can provide that particular information. I've even had a doctor that asked me, did I have any video? And at first I didn't understand it, but I didn't know that, when you guys do those little tapey things on people's back, or they got to go in the back, and you know how you guys do stuff. And so while the people just sitting there going through their little shock treatment, they would show different videos and stuff. And she asked me, did I have any video that I could show that she could probably show? And she took a YouTube video because they had internet connection or smart TV. And she would show a scene that from the video that we use for signs of abuse. And a victim, to basically let the victim know that she knew, but it was a cute way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And she only played it to this particular lady when she came for her little shock treatment, because she knew that it was something more going on. So it's just little things like that you can do to let them know that they have a safe space.
Yes.
And that if they are in need, this is a place that you can come back to get the help.
So what do you do? So say, for instance, I was working in a practice under a male doctor, and I suspected that he was the abuser of his wife. Now, mm-hmm. How does that change the dynamic? Like, are you able to report that? But I know that's kind of difficult because you got to have like hardcore proof or something of that nature. So how do you approach that?
Okay, if you suspect that your coworker is an abuser,
yes,
it depends on the relationship that you have with your coworker. If you had a relationship where you be like, hey, I know you're not mistreating your wife or your spouse, then yeah, you can have that conversation. But calling the law will make it more difficult for the victim.
Mm.
Because they may suspect that the victim have contacted you. And if the police don't get there, or even after police leave, you know what's going to happen. It's going to be turmoil in that particular house. So if you have a rapport with your coworker, then yes, that's a conversation that you can have with that individual. Like, you need to get help. Stop doing what you're doing. And I've had, I tell young people this, you'll be surprised when it comes to dating about how young people are. But one of the things that I tell young people is that young folks, and even adults as well, you can say things to your friend or your coworker that nobody else can say, and they will listen. But everybody doesn't have that. And so I think it's important that when you are dealing with those particular type of situations, it's a play it by ear situation. If the wife come up there and have her face is swollen, of course, those are things, those bystander tactics will come into place.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they come up and you actually see him or her strike the individual, then immediate action, bystander action, or calling the police is something that you should do. But you have to be careful as well, because a lot of times, and I used to have the statistics, but I haven't looked it up recently, of bystanders being harmed. Sometimes you can be a bystander, and I tell people this about being a bystander. Bystander is not you coming out there and guns are blazing. Hey, you better not do that anymore. If you don't go to West, you're not Superman. But bystander is making that 911 call and saying, hey, we're at Dr. So-and-so office, and I just witnessed a domestic violence situation.
Portia, are you familiar with the laws? Like, for instance, say if your husband was physically abusing you, and then you have a license to carry, and it gets to that point. What are the laws surrounding protecting yourself with a firearm? Are you familiar with those laws? Portia. Oh no, I think we lost her. Portia. All right, guys, I think we lost Portia for a quick second. So once she pops back in, we will let her back in. But this topic is a very near and dear topic to me because I actually lost one of my first cousins to domestic violence. And so that really hits home for me because a lot of times we don't really know what our family and what our friends are really, really going through. And so I think it's important that we understand the importance of these types of situations. And not only that, but how to handle ourselves and know the proper protocol as to not cause further harm to our family members and friends. So that's very near and dear to me. So hopefully Portia will pop back in. I'm going to reach out to her and see if everything is okay really quickly. Does anyone have any questions? Let me see. Oh, thank you, Yvonne. Does anyone have any questions? Hi, we have Mayor Jones on the live today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Yvonne. So tell me, have any of you ever dealt with domestic violence where you were in a situation where it was happening to either you or to your family member, and you would like to kind of chime in on some of the things and protocols that you had to go through, whether or not you had to visit a shelter or other things of that nature? No? Okay, we're going to give Portia a couple more minutes. All right, so let's kind of tap into some other things. So one thing that I got from this conversation as a healthcare provider is to definitely learn how to be discreet in my approach, just to not. Oh, here she is. She's back.
Our Wi-Fi went out. Blame it on rural America Wi-Fi. I do apologize. So where was I? Okay, so you can't go in guns a blazing. You need to make sure that you are using great tactics. And part of that is calling 911, being an immediate aid to the victim, and letting the victim know that, you encourage them. Don't ask those questions. Why don't you leave? Those type of questions and those type of comments are very discouraging when it comes to victims of domestic and sexual violence. And I think it's important that bystanders understand that, because a lot of times you can say things to victims. Am I frozen again? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You can say things to victims that can hurt them more and put them back in a different mindset that can later be very detrimental to the work of getting them to a point of survivorship.
Okay, so on the back end, what happens once the survivor has made contact with the facility? What happens on the back end?
Okay, so once they okay, can you hear me? Is everything good? Okay. Once the victim makes contact with the organization, so they call the 1-800 number, 800-799-7233. That's 800-799-7233. That's the domestic violence hotline. So once they call that, now two things may happen. One, it may automatically catch your number and send you to the nearest shelter. Or they will ask you to type in your zip code, okay? And then it will send you to the nearest shelter. Sometimes it's kind of dangerous because, and the reason why I say that is because we've had college students when I was in Tuscaloosa working, they have left and moved to other states, but because they still had a 205 number, they sent them to us. And so we have to look online and find a near shelter for them. So sometimes, so don't get frustrated when that happens. All right. So when they get there, they're going to ask them a question. Are you safe? Can you talk right now? If the answer is yes, are you going to come into shelter? Yes. Then they will let them know the secret location on where they need to go. They'll take some demographic for demographic. Don't freak out about that. Do you have to give your name, your real name and number? No, you do not. You can say Jane Doe. You can say John Doe. You don't have to give that. We do ask sometimes, for your cell phone number or your address if you're calling from home, simply because of the fact that if something, or we're disconnected, or we hear something in the background, we can call the police and say, hey, we need an officer to go to this particular address because there is a victim of domestic violence. And so once they make that call, they go to a location or the location that is considered a safe spot. The safe spot, someone from this local shelter will come. Most of the time, it is somewhere that is safe with security and have cameras just in case. And so we will go there and escort the individual to the shelter. When they get to the shelter, it depends on the victim. If the victim just wants to just get to a bed and lay down and sleep, that's what we allow them to do. If the victim feels like filling out the paperwork right then, they can fill out the paperwork. If they want to go lay down and come back the next morning and do it, they can do that. They will be provided a bed with clean linen and towels. If they come just themselves, they will be provided with clothing. They'll be provided. That's why they take clothing donation. That's why they take toothpaste, toothbrush donations, shampoo, all that good stuff. So, all of that can be provided if they do not have it themselves. After which they will be provided with a meal, or they get 3 meals a day. Some people do meal, snack. But the basic is 3 meals a day. Every house, every domestic violence shelter have their own rules. Some are communal bathrooms. Some have private bathrooms in the room. It depends on where you are. And so if the victim decides that after the first night they want to go back, we allow them to do that. It takes a victim up to 7 times before they finally make the decision to leave permanently. And I say that repeatedly to also let listeners understand it is a long process. It is a very, very long process. And so we don't force anything on victims. We allow them to make decisions. I know people like, why you feel the need that you have to say that? I have to say this because I always tell this story. When I first got into this field, I remember a lady specifically. And so we had this closet, which was like a pantry. They can go in and get the toothpaste. We get them a little basket. They throw this stuff in. And so I was finishing up her paperwork. I told her, I said, yeah, just go in there and get everything that you need before I take you upstairs to your room. And so what happened, what happened is that when she got into that, after a while, it was just dead silence. I'm like, this is weird. And so I went in to take her. She was standing in the middle of the closet. And she was crying. And I'm like, why are you crying? And she said, I don't know what kind of toothpaste I like. And it took me back because I'm like, toothpaste? You know what I mean? Yeah. But for so long, she was in a 15-year domestic violence relationship, and everything that she bought was in her house was stuff he liked. She had never made a decision in 15 years of something that she liked. And I know that seems small, but we give victims the point. And I told her, I was just like that. I said, hey, take all of them, try all of them out. You know what I mean? But the point of it was that even something as small as that, giving them that power to make decisions again is something that we give back to victims. So when they ask us, what should I do next? We don't say, okay, you need to do A, B, C, D. We ask, what do you want to do? What steps do you want to take? How do you want to handle this situation? It's up to the victim. So we don't lead them in any direction. We give them if they ask a question, we give them the options and we put it back in their court. You are making these decisions again and taking your power back and building and helping them build their life of survivorship, and that is being free of violence.
Yes. Now, once the victim goes to the shelter, can the abuser find where she is?
Well, one of the things, we did have a partnership with Verizon, but they've stopped the cell phone program. But one of the things that we used to do is give them box phone. We still had a couple. They still give out a couple, but not like they used to with the minutes on them, because a lot of the smartphones have device apps on it that they can find a location. One of the reasons why domestic violence shelters are secure with cameras is for that particular reason. That's why we have great relationship with law enforcement. We do law enforcement training to get there immediately, just in case. Have we had situations in shelter life in our state to where the perpetrator have found the shelter? Absolutely, that has happened. But Tuscaloosa Police Department showed up instantly because we have procedures for those particular situations. So it does happen, and it is a dangerous field. I tell people that all the time. It is a dangerous field, but it's worth it when you see the results of the lives that are being changed. Those particular instances are few and far between. Most of the time, the perpetrator, once they go into shelter, is they try to we call it the honeymoon phase. They're very apologetic. They're sorry for all the things that they've done. They're going to get a job. They're going to do everything that the victim was complaining about they're not doing. They're going to do it, and they're going to be great. And most of the time, the victims fall for it, because you got to understand, this is why I tell people all the time, domestic violence is the physical part is what everybody sees, but the mental part is what we try to break, because mentally that individual is invested in the relationship. And what begins to happen is what we see why, oh, girl, you're so crazy to go back, because mentally she or he is invested. And so it's hard to break that mental chain without the proper care. And so once they get into shelter and they see that they do have help, majority of the time during the honeymoon phase, they do go back. And so, yeah. And so then in about 6 weeks or so, we'll get another call that they want to come in and get the help. And then we'll allow them to do that. And we'll allow you to come back and forth as much as you can, as long as you can get to safety. But we try to encourage you not to go back, but not insist that you don't, because it ultimately is the victim's decision.
Yes. And Portia, what was that number for them to call again?
It is 1-800-799-7233, 800-799-7233. That's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and it goes to any shelter that is registered. Because like with in Alabama, we have the Alabama Coalition Against Domestic Violence. We also have the Alabama Coalition Against Rape. And so up under those umbrellas, you have organizations throughout our state that are registered through them. And so when you're registered through them, when they call that number, whatever state, whatever county is dispatched to that particular shelter, your county or what city or whatever that you're in will automatically go to that shelter, so you can get the help for your particular area.
Yes. And so a lot of people too, when you think of domestic violence, a lot of people only think about physical abuse. But your spouse or significant other can abuse you verbally, mentally, emotionally, encompasses all of that as well.
Absolutely. The mental abuse is the hardest thing to break. I've had victims that tell me, I would rather, and I know this about to sound crazy, but they say, I'd rather take the physical, because that mental scar don't ever go away. Yeah. And that's why we have to be careful the way that we say. And I tell that story all the time about me laughing loud. I had, when I was working at a safe house in Shelby County, on my shift, everybody used to come down because I'm a talk now. I'm a talk. And so they used to come down. We used to talk and laugh. We used to have our little group sessions and stuff. And so one time I was laughing. We had a new victim. And so she waited till everybody left. It was like almost midnight. She come down and and she was disturbed. And I said, hey, let's talk. And she talked. And one of the things she said, the way that you laughed tonight reminded me of my mother-in-law and how she used to laugh when her then ex, now ex, used to beat her. And I was like, wow. And here and she was like, but I don't mean any harm, y'all. However, one of the things that happened was I controlled the way that I laughed while during her time at the shelter. And it wasn't like she was being disrespectful or anything like that. It's just that that I didn't want to continue to put her back into the headspace. And so those are things that we had to watch what we say, watch how we laugh, watch the way that we talk to victims. It's being very careful. That's why I tell people all the time when this field, and that's why, you know, with the organization that we're breaking up in the Black Belt that we're getting ready to launch, is that I don't want anyone to work that is not committed to the movement. This is a movement. It's not just a job. And that's what I had to learn, is that you are actually, this is a serious situation. And a lot of people don't like to discuss it. And I'm glad that you're bringing this into doctors' offices, because a lot of times, you know, the victim go to the doctor.
Right.
You know, and for all kinds of things. And so this is information that is out there, is free. I got to keep stressing that. These are free services. These are your tax dollars coming back and working for you. And so it's important that we continue to have these type of discussions, but also for doctor offices and facilities to allow these organizations to come in, not to take over, but to provide the help to the people in which you serve.
Yes. And so I know we covered most of domestic violence. So let's kind of tap into the sexual assault aspect.
Okay.
So if a patient comes to me and says that, hey, I've been raped, or, you know, some people say my husband raped me. A lot of people, you know, don't expect they think your husband can't rape you, but
that's true.
So what do I do as a healthcare professional? Like, do I call 911 immediately? Do I call a sexual assault contact? Or what do I do?
If it's someone that's under the age of 18, you definitely got to call DHR.
Okay, so
doctors are mandated reporters.
Yes.
Doctors are mandated reporters, and doctors have the responsibility to report rape of a minor. In the state of Alabama, and this is something that people do not know, in the state of Alabama, anyone that has been sexually assaulted as a minor, there's no statute of limitation, meaning that there's no time limit in when he or she should report.
And as a provider, if they're underage, do I have to contact the parents first before contacting DHR? Or do
you are mandated reporter. You are mandated to report. This is before the parents. This is for anything. You can lose your license for this. I have to tell people that. I have to tell clergy people this as well. You can lose your license for this. If their child come in your office and say that, well, I told Dr. O that, you know, somebody did something to me, where's Dr. O report to DHR? You understand that? Yeah. So you are mandated reporter, and everyone should go to the website. I think it's on the Child Advocacy Center website. No, it's on DHR, where you can take that mandated reporter class, get your little certificate or whatever. You don't have to pay for it. Take the class. They got videos. You watch the little videos. They got the 2020 version. They all fancy with it now. So, you know, take the video, get your little certificate. You are a mandated reporter. You got to report it. You're going to get in trouble for that. And I think it's important to say that as it relates to anyone that's over the age of 18 years old, the question that you need to ask is, what do you want me to do? If it's been 72 hours, they're over the age of 18 years old, and it's been 72 hours, over 72 hours, it's kind of hard to collect evidence for that. I think under 14 is 140 or 60. I can't remember. Dang, it's been a while. But they have a time limit as well. I know for adults it's 72 hours. You have 72 hours to get, you know, the longer you wait to get the rape kit done, the farther it is away from you for collecting the correct evidence. And I can get Tasha Galante to, you can get her on here to discuss the rape kits and all that, what happens to that. But if it has happened, just say it's been a week ago, okay, great. I mean, not great. I mean, that doesn't mean that they can't get help.
Yeah.
And I say that to say this is that ACAR, if you go to www.acar.org, they have a list of all the rape crisis centers in the state of Alabama and the counties in which they serve. And they have the numbers for each one, because every rape center have their own number or whatever. The other thing about that is that if you do that, they can immediately, we can get them into counseling. Mm-hmm. And counseling is important. .org is .org.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Counseling is very important. I got to stress this. For domestic violence as well, but definitely for victim of sexual assault. If it happened today, or if it happened 20 years ago, you need counseling. You need to get the mental help to get you the help which you deserve. As it relates to doctor dealing with victims of sexual assault, be careful about touching. If they just say, if you have to do something, right? So just say, if you have to go on the shoulder area, and you see that makes that person uncomfortable, talk them through it. I when I used to do presentation to physicians or nurses, talk them through it, saying, Jane, I see that you're uncomfortable with me touching your shoulder, because that can be a trigger moment.
Right.
Okay. So you say, hey, Jane, I'm touching your shoulder because I need to see where this lump is in your shoulder. Is it okay for me to touch you here? I'm telling you, it will make a difference. You know what I mean? It will make the survivor respect you, but also know that you are there to help them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. The reason why I say, when you talk about trigger moments, I can remember when I first got to North Alabama, and we had this big case that happened at a chicken plant. I'm not gonna get into it with that. But one of the victims that was a part of this big thing that was happening, she got upset because she thought I did not want to help her. Mm-hmm. She's like, you don't want to help me. That's what she had stormed out of the office, and it bothered me. So I said, I'm gonna wait a day. I called her the next day. I said, ma'am, because one of the things that she told me was, she said, well, when he came in and he was looking at me, and he said, ooh, your hair looks good. And I was like, okay, then what happened? Nothing. He walked away. I was like, well, ma'am, that's a compliment. That's not sexual harassment. And she got mad. She just knew I didn't want to help her. So the next day when I called her, I said, ma'am, it just bothered me how you left out of here. And I said, you felt like, and I said, it's not that I don't want to help you. I wanted you to understand the difference between a compliment and sexual harassment. And I said, why do you think that when he told you that your hair looks good, that you thought that was him hitting on you? And she said, because that's what my stepdaddy used to do before he used to do stuff to me in the room.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, now I can help you. And I immediately hooked her up with our counselor, Sam, for sexual assault counseling, because she was still dealing with adolescent rape, and she had never gotten the mental help that she deserved. And so that's why I tell people all the time, especially doctors and people that touch people. Masseuse, I saw Bun is on there. Mm-hmm. If you touch someone and they move or they do something and then if they look uncomfortable, you don't have to say, hey, you were raped, weren't you? No, that's not what you do. You just simply say, you walk them through why you have to do this particular thing. And a lot of time they will be a more easy. It's just a trigger moment for them for something that traumatic has happened to them in the past.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there was another question that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, sure.
But it kind of slipped my mind a little.
Okay. In between the technical difficulties that the internet still ain't up. I was in the middle of class today, in the middle of going in, and the internet went out. I was like, wow. Okay. Southern ruin. Then they're talking about snow, so the line's finna free. We really not gonna have no internet.
Yes. So you said first I have to ask the question of what do you want me to do? Right? When I asked them, once they told me that they
if you see them uncomfortable. So just say, like, give me a procedure that you do when they lay on my back, right?
Well, I know one thing
on my stomach.
Yeah, on your stomach, because sometimes we have to adjust your hips.
Yeah.
Or, your tailbone or something like that. So I always try to make sure that I'm asking, like, hey, I'm gonna be touching, below the belt. Is that okay? So they did teach us that in school, was to, always ask for permission when you are, before you adjust below the waist.
Uh-huh. And that's the right thing to do. And that's good that they taught you that. And even if you're touching in places that you may think shouldn't make a person uncomfortable. You will be surprised. That's why I'm very skeptical saying I say babe and I say boo a lot and stuff like that. I have to be careful with that because that can be a trigger word for someone.
Yeah.
Especially the people that you don't deal with on a daily basis. So it's very important that you know those particular those points, and also know how those points will help someone in the future.
Yes. I think that is
So
great.
you're doing a good job. Most people, I had doctors tell me, that's too much to do. I'm like, how's that too much to do to ask someone if you're comfortable?
Baby, they'll learn when they have to call that malpractice insurance.
That's why I definitely say I bet you're saying that. I bet you're saying that.
Yeah, because you get especially our male doctors, they always say that when you are in the room with someone that you even suspect that, because we have some people that prey on doctors.
Yeah.
You always supposed to have an assistant of the opposite sex in the exam room or in the adjustment room with you. Whenever you kind of, you get those weird vibes from certain patients that they're kind of up to something. So it's a way to kind of protect yourself.
Right.
Because I've had a patient slap me on the ass one time.
What?
Yes, ma'am. And so you know how you have a patient lay on you have a patient like lay on their side, like do the side posture. And you kind of give them like a little like, okay, lay on your side, face me. And when I did that, he smacked me on the ass.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. Yes.
What did he do?
And I was so like, you know what I mean? I was so caught off guard. And I was like, hey, like, don't touch me like that. You know what I mean? And I ended up having to speak to the doctor that I was working for at that time. And he kind of got him together. But it was one of them situations where it happened so fast. It was like, what? Like, like what just happened? But
I would have probably punched it.
Baby, let me tell you. But it's like we have to be so careful in how we handle situations like this because we can lose our license like this. And a lot of people don't realize it. And so we have to be extra careful with how we handle situations like that. But yeah, people are crazy.
Yes, people are crazy. I tell people get mad when I say that, but we have this discussion all the time. People really are crazy. And that's why in our field, I've had people that, that ask me all kinds of stuff. What about this? Or what about this? To try to trip up questions, I call them. What do you do if this situation? Victims can be both male and female when it comes to domestic sexual violence. Domestic sexual violence have no respect of person, socioeconomic status, none of that stuff. It is a crime. It is a crime, and it's a crime of power and control on both sides. And that's important to say, is that it is a crime on both sides. Do I believe that people can provoke people to do stuff? I do not believe that. I think people do those things for those particular reasons. How can you say, I would use an example of one of my childhood friends who beat up 3 girls at the same time, whooped all 3 of them at the same time, but was being abused physically by someone who was like 200 pounds smaller than her, because mentally he had destroyed her.
Yes.
Mentally. So it's all about power and control. That's why, I don't date long, because, those same words, you need to obey, or you got to do what that's not the language of someone who wants you to love them.
Right.
A person that loves you will not put their hands on you. Yes, wives, you have the right to say no to sex with your husband. You have the right to do that. And that individual does not have the right to you don't belong to that individual. Yes, you are one under the eyesight of God, but that individual don't control every aspect of who you are. And if he loves and respects you, he or she will not do anything to harm you mentally or physically.
Yes.
And that's something that you need to understand. And if you go to, whether you go to a doctor's office and you go to your doctor office and you see that pamphlet, that's your safe space. Don't take that pamphlet that day, especially if you have someone that's going to check your car, check the stuff you're doing. But know that when you need that help, you know that that's where you can go to get it. And that's why it's important, doctors, chiropractors, or whomever, to have that information on hand, because you don't know what you're paid. They don't tell you everything. Mm-hmm. You don't know what they may or may not be going through. You may or may not suspect it. But if you provide them a sense of knowing that just in case something, make sure your staff is trained on such things. Even when signing in, I had a doctor to tell me, had called one time when I was working in Tuscaloosa, and the patient, when they signed in their name, said, "I need help."
Oh my goodness. And
the nurse, when she looked at the name, how when you go through routine, they highlight stuff. And she said something that they just said, "Read." And so she saw it and she said, "I need help." And she was with someone. Mm-hmm. And so they were able, and the guy had no clue what was going on. When she came in, the police came from the back. This is a true story. The police came from the back. That particular officer called me. That's how I ended up finding out about it. That particular officer called, and we were able to assist her. And the whole time he waiting up front, and she gone.
That's like a video I saw where
she was gone.
She wrote a note.
Uh-huh.
She went to the restaurant. She slid it to the receptionist.
Yeah, similar to that. Yeah. And it was funny because when the cop had called, he was like, it was close to where our office was. And I was like, I don't know how we gonna do this. But I didn't know he had come through the back, and he told me, "Come to the back." And he came to the back, and we were by the garbage can. She got in the car, took her right on over to the shelter. Yes. Yeah. Sure did. She came with, and that's why it's important. When you're donating, this is another thing. When you're donating, even if you're donating your clothes, new stuff is great. But if you're donating your clothes, make sure it's clean. Make sure it's folded nice. And if you can, put it in the tag wore off or the side we can't see it, write it on there. It's important. You'll be surprised people did donate anything. I'm being honest about it.
I'm not surprised.
You know what I mean? Be respectful. Yeah, that may be in a shelter, they may be in a point of need, but that don't mean they want anything.
Too.
Right. Be respectful. Be respectful and get them some good stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to donate it.
How can we donate to local shelters?
Okay, so like I said, acadv.org, ACA card, they have a list of shelters, and this is in the state of Alabama. Whatever state you're in, they have a coalition. If you go to the National Coalition of Domestic Violence website, that's ncadv.org, or you go to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center website, you can find in any state across and territories across the great United States, you can find your local shelter or your local rape crisis center. So you will contact them through there, and you'll be able to find out the information that you need about your particular area, and then just call them. Say, "Hey, I got some stuff. What do you need?" I know one of the things that are needed, especially for rape crisis center that serves rural areas, gas cars. Because they can't, soft money. I tell people it's important about donation. Soft money, when you donate to these organizations, they have what they call soft money. Soft money is used in organizations to match grants, and it's also used for things that grants won't allow us to buy. And one of the things grants won't allow us to buy in rural areas is gas cars. So we need gas cars. So donate gas cars. You got $100, get. You can get $5 $20 gas cars or something like that, or 4 $25 gas cars or whatever, and donate it to your local shelter, because they can give that to victims. So, for instance, in North Alabama, victims have to drive from rural DeKalb County to Fort Payne, Alabama. So for some, that's a 40-minute drive. And so that's gas cars for them. Same thing in Marshall County. In the Black Belt, we have to go to Tuscaloosa to get a rape kit done. So imagine having to go to Tuscaloosa from Demopolis. You're looking at an hour drive, and that's gas that you're going to have to buy. So giving those gas cards to those organizations so they can be able to give to victims to get back home safe, or maybe grab them a bag of chips or something at the local gas station, because a lot of times, they'd be so nervous and they'd be hungry after, because the process can be a little lengthy. The actual rape kit is not long. It's the paperwork that goes before that is a little lengthy. And so just giving them that extra is important, just so they can have that with them as they're going through. Also, what's needed is for Rape Crisis Center, I know, like jogger pants, t-shirts, brand new panties, not used panties, brand new panties, and underwear, boxers for guys, because they do jail rapes and things like that, and socks. Sometimes, because sometimes if the victim comes in with the clothing that he or she was raped in, it is sometimes collected for evidence. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And so for domestic violence victims, all brand new stuff if you can. If not, just make sure what you donate is clean. Definitely brand new toothbrush, toothpaste, floss, shampoo, all that type of stuff that you would use at home, they would definitely use in the shelter. Cleaning supplies to make sure things are clean, because sometimes shelters have them to do chores. Some shelters have janitorial services, but it depends on the budget of that particular shelter. So those are just some of the items that are needed in domestic and sexual violence center. So if you guys want to do that, if that your group or your church or your local whatever, those are some of the things that can be collected, not just during Christmas time, but throughout the year.
Well, Portia, first, I just want to thank you for showing up and giving some much needed information to the community. Do you have any closing remarks that you would like to relay before we end this live tonight?
Sure. What I want to thank you for doing this. This is important. You guys don't understand. I mean, the war, I think because I talk a lot, I think that's making it a lot easier. But everybody's not Portia. And a lot of our shelters across the state, and even when I go to national conferences, the horror stories that I hear from people being doctors' office slamming doors in people's face, and churches not allowing people to come in and speak on these stuff, it is ridiculous. Allow these organizations to come into you. That's why they're in your community. Not to put shame on you, not to say you're not doing your job, but to provide people with a service. And these services, once again, are free to the people in which you're supposed to serve. So I just ask you guys, if you're watching this show, if you guys are in the field of medicine, chiropractor work, cities, government, schools, allow these organizations to come into these spaces to provide the necessary information to get the individuals the help that they so desperately need. In our state, we went from having 14 prevention education. It's been cut down to so many because it seemed like that they weren't doing the work, but they were trying. But the doors have been closed. So I appreciate you for having this conversation tonight, because people need to understand that there is free help out there for you. You do not have to stay in those situations. You do not have to stay in domestic violence situations. You do not have to suffer mentally for being a victim of childhood rape or being a victim of rape as an adult, or even in undergrad. You do not have to stay in that mental misery. There is free help out there, free counseling services, free services that are available to you. And like I said, when you see FICA on your check, don't get mad. These are your tax dollars at work, and allow us to work for you. But in order for us to know that, you got to make that call and you got to get the help. So thank you again, Gloria, for having us on tonight. And I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And so tell the people how they can get in contact with you.
Okay, well, on all my social media, from Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, it is my name, Portia Shepherd. I also have a show that comes on Tuesday night called Portia Takes on the Black Belt, so we'll be on tomorrow. And we discuss everything from politics to relationships. It does, just whatever pops up in my brain. So we're excited about that. But we're also allowing the community to have a voice, and also educate, not just on domestic and sexual violence, but on how to be involved in your community locally by making an impact, by holding politicians accountable for the work that they should be doing in the community in which we live. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to thank everyone who tuned in tonight for our very first show.
Yay!
We will have some amazing other people coming on this show as well. So I can't wait. Also to contact me on Facebook. It's just, you can contact me at the Facebook page Random Health-ish. Or Dr. Gloria Stone-Ozbek. Let me put that up here real quick.
Okay.
So that if you guys ever want to get in contact with me, or if you would like to be a guest on this show, please reach out to me on all. This is my name on all social media. I would love to have you as a guest. So again, thank you, Portia, for tuning in.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.